Hello, everybody. So I'm having the most difficulty figuring out how to go live from the scheduled video. So I had made, well, not a scheduled video, but I'd basically made like I'd scheduled the live stream, and then I wanted to be able to get into the live stream from that same link, and I just wasn't able to figure it out. So anyway, I'm on here, and I'm going to talk about Elantris by Brandon Sanderson, which I finished recently. Only very recently have I gotten into adult high fantasy. I think this would count as adult. Basically, when I was a kid, I only read fantasy. And then when I was probably like 14, 15, I was reading only classics and mostly of the Victorian period. And then I got into nonfiction because I discovered academic research libraries, and I got into even more of a niche area. And yeah, I basically that's really what happened. I had completely abandoned fantasy. I was reading some genre fiction, and once I got back into genre fiction, I didn't know where to start with adult fantasy because, I mean, this isn't that long. This book is like 600 pages, but Brandon Sanderson is famous for writing ginormous books. What really got me to read him was two things. First, I started getting back into high fantasy by reading Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell by Susanna Clarke, but that's kind of more literary, and it's not exactly high fantasy. It's kind of, in some ways, pretty traditional because it deals with magicians, but I love that book. And then I read Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. And so that's the first thing. And the second thing is that I discovered Brandon Sanderson's online presence. And I was binge watching his live streams and really getting involved in his live streams. And I was so impressed by the way that he interacts with his audience and how much respect he shows to his readers, that I thought, I will read him next. And I think it makes all the difference, like how you interact with your audience. And I just felt like, here he is someone who's so prolific. He finishes his series. And I was really interested in that. So I read Elantris, and this was his debut novel. This came out in 2005. So he's been publishing for like 15 years now. And he had written 6 books before this, but none of his books had really made it. But this one, he somehow was able to, from my understanding, he was able to find some kind of a connection. He found a publisher who was willing to read his manuscript, which isn't really the way that it usually goes. Usually you find an agent who represents you, and then you then query manuscripts. But yeah, it just kind of shows how rapidly the publishing industry has changed in the last 15 years. But yeah, it was really hard for him, but this was his first book. And the reason why I decided to read this one isn't so much that it was his first book, but that it's one of his few standalones. And fantasy tends to be, especially high fantasy, it's very sprawling. There's several volumes. Right now he's writing the Stormlight Archive series, which I think is supposed to be like 10 books, and each of the books are like 1,200 pages from what I've seen. Definitely didn't want to start there. I wanted to start with something that was a standalone because, if I didn't like it, I'd try a different author. I do want to continue with him. So I just want to put that out there. I do have some criticisms of this book, but I do think it is a decent debut. And that's really, for me, what's important, whether or not it's, a decent enough debut that I want to continue. And I definitely do want to continue. The other thing that has interested me is that Sanderson, again, kind of going along with his desire to be much more, to be very, welcoming to his fans, is that he for his book Warbreaker, which is another standalone in this Cosmere universe, he posted on his website, or I think on Creative Space, which is now something different. He posted all of his drafts leading up to Warbreaker's, like the finished manuscript of Warbreaker. And so I think it would be really interesting, I think, for Author to make a series of videos based on Warbreaker and how his journey has changed, like how, from the first draft of Warbreaker all the way to the published manuscript. So what I was thinking of doing was reading Warbreaker and then reading the different drafts, and not, of course, reviewing the drafts, but as a way of me feeling comfortable with creative writing, because I do not consider myself a creative person, and I do at some point want to write fiction. I have considered writing a historical mystery because I really like that kind of genre or subgenre of mystery. But because I've never really written creatively, I'm so scared to start. I know that it's not official. I know that I can write a novel and it can be terrible and then I can move on to something else. But I'm just so scared of getting into writing fantasy. So I thought it would be really cool if, I read Warbreaker, and then read all of the different drafts and get to see his journey and get to see how, this book, began. Hopefully it'll make me feel good, because then I'll see that really everyone begins with this very, very rough draft. And then eventually it becomes a published novel, which, Brandon Sanderson isn't like a master of the English language, but it's fine. That, for me, it's like, here is an author who's made himself vulnerable, who's put all of his early drafts out there. I want to see what this will teach me about creative writing, and hopefully it will inspire me to read those same books. So that is something that I want to do. Not now, because I have a few other books I want to get to first, but I do want to do that for AuthorTube. So I'm just putting that out there if any of that sounds interesting. But today we're talking about Elantris. So this book, I think, got better as it went along, which is usually pretty rare. I mean, often when I read a book, like the first half of the book is usually much better than the second half of the book. Like the first half of the book is, really well edited, and then the second half of the book, it seems as if like the editors have just dropped off the face of the planet. But here I felt it was very different. I felt like the first half of the book, I didn't really care too much about the characters, and then the second half got really interesting. The second half, I thought that the battle scenes were really well written. I cared about their relationship, which is rare for me because I'm someone who is never affected by romance. For whatever reason, romance does absolutely nothing for me. But at least I cared a little bit. I cared a little bit about the relationship here. And I just thought that also the way that this question of religious fundamentalism was dealt with at least felt the most authentically like the presentation I felt was the most authentic. I feel like, I'll get to that in a moment, but I do feel that oftentimes in fiction, when fundamentalism or religious extremism is presented, I don't believe the motivations of the characters. It doesn't ring true to me. And maybe because it's written by people who've had absolutely no real understanding of fundamentalism, or if they belong to it, they never really bought in. So anyway, I'm going to get to that in a moment. What is this book about? So there are two major characters, whose storylines we are following. The first is Raoden. I think this is how his name is pronounced. I did listen to the audiobook a bit, so I do know how to pronounce some of the names. Raoden he's the prince of Erlon, and he basically wakes up in Elantris, which is the kingdom, former kingdom, next door to Arlon. There's like this giant wall, and then there's Elantris, and it's where the damned go. So basically Raoden wakes up damned, and he doesn't realize at first that he's dead. But then he comes to realize by meeting other people in Elantris that he's dead, and that, he can never really die, but also whatever injuries he has to live with for eternity. So yeah, it's a pretty terrible situation. And it was even worse is that his father is the king, and his father is a really terrible king. And he was also betrothed to a woman, Serene, who now has to, well, she wasn't his wife. He was engaged to her. And but based on the contract, she's basically still married to him, despite the fact that she never actually married him. So that's the second storyline. The first storyline is Raoden, who's stuck in Elantris, damned, and he has to figure out what to do there. The second storyline is Serene, who has to, figure out how to live with this king who is terrible. But the big thing is that she really wants to create this alliance between her own kingdom, because she's a princess of Teod, and Erlon. And there's someone who's gotten in the way of this alliance, and that's Rothan, who is a high priest of a religion, and a religion that is already the official religion of another kingdom called Fjordell. And he basically wants to conquer Arlon for the Lord Jadith, who's like the god of this universe. And she doesn't want that, because by him converting Arlon into this religion, into this form of this religion, basically a religious sect, he's essentially conquering Arlon for Fjordell, whereas she wants to create an alliance with Teod, who has not, along with Arlon, converted to this sect. So I really liked Raoden. I think that Raoden was a very interesting character. He was a bit too flawless. It's kind of the same criticism that I have towards Kvothe in Name of the Winds. It's kind of a character who is a bit too heroic, like he has no flaws. And I wish that he had at least some flaws. It seems like, yeah, okay, he has some difficulties sometimes learning things, but it also feels like he's just so unbelievably charismatic that everybody just buys into his vision. And, it doesn't really take that much time to convince the Elantrians to join him in, making Elantris beautiful. And I think that it would have been nice if he had more flaws. I think the character that I really loved was Galadon. He really reminded me of C-3PO in Star Wars, just how pessimistic he is. And I guess I just relate to pessimistic characters. But I just loved Galadon because, yeah, he's really faithful, but he's also, he's very down to earth, and he's fun, and I just want more about him. I hope that he appears in Sanderson's other Cosmere books, because I think that would be really cool. But the Elantris storyline I thought was pretty interesting, because Raoden's trying to figure out what happened. How is it that the Kingdom of Elantris suddenly became this place for the damned? Like, what's really going on? And it's tied to the language, and the language is pretty interesting. I think the world building of Elantris is really unique. The storyline with Serene is much less original. Serene is, the not like other women. She is the woman who has no flaws. Or, yeah, she doesn't really have any flaws. She's also like the assassin woman who's also judging the other women in the kingdom because they're not as badass as she is. They don't have great martial arts skills. And everything that she thinks up just ends up working. And I sometimes just want to see people who really struggle to convince others of their vision. I want to see people who really, she's a woman in a man's world, and somehow she's able to convince the men to listen to her. And not only to listen to her, but like to listen to her political decisions. I was like, okay, that's a little bit a little bit hard to believe, and I don't know, I just kind of sometimes want more flawed characters. So I found Serini to be less interesting. The only like the scenes that I found probably the most unique was when Serini ended up in Elantris and she's interacting with Spirit, who is Raoden, and I thought that was really cute because yeah, they did have they had an interesting rapport, and she doesn't know who he is, he knows who she is, and he's just playing with her, and she's playing with him by not giving them Raoden and his followers what they're asking for, or she gives it to them, but she like gives it to them in such a way that they can't really use the products she gives them. That was kind of funny. But yeah, otherwise, I thought Serini was a pretty weak character. And I think that's probably my biggest criticism of the book, is that, she's not weak. She's strong, but in a weird kind of like, she's not very human. I guess that's it. I felt the Serini was very hard for me to believe as a character. And I felt like it fell into a lot of these cliches about, women being not like other women. And in fact, her saying that, it was just annoying. There is a little bit, again, of what, the Elantrians are cursed by, developing deformities. And, after watching Jen Campbell's videos, I don't find that very appealing anymore. I am now noticing when others do that, because it's just, it's a bit lazy, like, why do people who are damned, why this ableism, and yes, technically the Elantrians aren't entirely damned. I mean, there seems to have been an actual natural reason for why Elantris is what it is. But still, I think that he could have done a little bit differently. The villain Rathan I like Rathan. I think that he has a redemption arc, and then the redemption arc was pretty believable, because you could see Rathan, who has he has some faith, but not entirely. He hasn't fully bought in. He has bought in. He's devoted to Lord Jaddeth and to the Word, but at the same time, he has doubts, and he tries to hide the fact that he doesn't always believe. And so you can see that he's a hypocrite, but also he's kind of a self-aware hypocrite, because he knows his hypocrisy and he tries to justify his hypocrisy. So I did like Rathan. I thought Rathan was a pretty interesting character, because he has yes, okay. Hello, Lukash. I thought Rathan was the most interesting character in the novel. Yes, I definitely agree. He's got a story arc. You see him change over the course of the novel. And I also, like I was saying earlier, that I feel like there is a certain understanding of fundamentalism and leaders in these kinds of institutions about how they think about religion. And I felt like Rathan's story rang true to me. How he has these doubts, but then he doesn't want to acknowledge he has these doubts. And there's a lot of fear. There's a lot of fear because he wants he's really loyal to his religion. But it made sense. His redemption arc made a lot of sense, because he never wanted to destroy Arlon. He never wanted to, and I actually didn't. I don't know why I didn't. I didn't expect that other guy was named Delathi or whatever. I didn't expect him to be basically an assassin. I didn't expect that, so I was surprised. So that was a surprising moment. So that was nice. That was an interesting twist. So yeah, I do agree. Rathan is a really interesting character. I liked Rathan, and I liked Galadon. So I feel like I know that there are some other books in the universe, but I would love to see spin-offs with those characters being more, Well, Rothan is a pretty major character, but like having Galadon be a major character, I think that would be really fun. The writing is fine. I mean, I think he does a lot of showing or telling rather than showing. I think at times, he could have done more with showing. He's not like a master of the English language, but it's fine. Like, I wasn't really looking for that, and I think the only time the writing really got in the way was when I felt the characters were a bit one-dimensional. Like, they were too good. They were too perfect. They were too. I want flaws. I want people who really work for things. And I didn't see that in this book, and I didn't see that in Name of the Wind with Patrick Rothfuss. So if you have ideas for fantasy novels where characters actually have to work for something and fail, like legitimately fail, that would be great. I feel like sometimes, I'm all for heroic fantasy, but like the hero can be human too. And here, I think they're human. I mean, they're human with in a magical world, basically. Remember the dialogue being kind of less than impressive. I read it a few years ago. Yeah. Okay. I think so. The dialogue I wasn't particularly turned off by the dialogue. I think the only thing that did really bother me was that there's a lot of the world building is kind of shoved into the dialogue. So I guess that makes the dialogue less than impressive because there's that again, like telling and not showing, where instead of showing or like somehow maybe alluding to certain things, it's like Serini or whatever will start to just spew all of this information about the history of the world, and it'll be shoved into the dialogue. It's very stilted, and then that's not really how people talk. They're not like, oh, let's just talk about the history of our world. Like, that's not, I'm not just going to randomly start talking about American history. Like, or, how this past president did this thing. It's like, there have to be other ways to get that information across, or maybe just leave it out. And maybe this is part of what Brandon Sanderson does, is like try to shove everything in. That's probably why his books are so long. But yeah, I mean, I guess that's also another reason why I want to read Warbreaker, because I want to see how his drafts change over time, because he has published his drafts are available for free online. And I want to see how his drafts change, and like whether he improves on his dialogue, or like what areas he works on the most, what areas he works least on. I think that would be really interesting, because I think that this book was just, it was a 3-star read. I gave it 3 stars. I thought it was fine. There were some things that kind of irritated me, but like it didn't wow me, and I think it kind of, in a way, I just hate to say this, but I kind of understand why it took him a little bit of time to get a publisher, because this is a pretty it's just, I don't know, it's a middle of a road fantasy. Like, it's a debut, that's fine, but like there are so many books like this, not the same kind of world, but like same sort of dialogue, same kind of some of the same flaws. There's something amateur about it. He does write very good battle scenes, though. Right. Yeah. Nothing super special. Totally agree. People are saying that like the Mistborn trilogy is pretty special. I got through half of the first book and then gave up. But then I'm thinking that maybe I was in the wrong mindset. I know it's YA, which already like puts me off a little bit, because my experience with YA, the little experience I've had, has not been the greatest. I want to try again. But yeah, my impression is that, his books are fun. And like, if that's what they are, that's what they are. I don't have like huge expectations. But yeah, I do want to read more about him. I think just because there were enough characters that I was interested in that I was like, I could continue. I don't know. Let's see. There there's yeah, I don't actually know, so I don't really know how this book fits into the Cosmere universe. So my understanding is that he has this universe of books, and then he's basically grandfathered Elantris into the Cosmere. And because he has like some sequels or some companion novels to this work, which are somehow supposed to be tied to like all of the other books that he has written. I don't know. But yeah, this was fine. This was okay. I would I recommend it? I mean, it would depend. I think that if a person is already very well seasoned in adult fantasy, maybe not. But you know, for someone like myself who is just kind of getting into adult fantasy, and you know, high fantasy, I think it was fine. Like it was good enough that I would want to continue. I've just also been very intimidated by series and like how many pages are in these books. Like, yeah. I don't know if I have other things to talk about with Elantris. I guess yeah. I like this cover. I got it from well, like, so I'm living in Switzerland, and so the covers of the English language books are UK covers, and this is really pretty. Like, I'm going to donate it because I basically donate every book I ever read. That unless it's like amazing, and also I have to like move back to the US eventually, assuming this all ends. So I will donate it. But this is a nice edition. This is a pretty nice edition. Yes. So I do want to read Warbreaker next to Brandon Sanderson, but the other thing I'm going to be reading next is The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I just got it for my birthday, and I want to read at least the first book, and I actually just want to, you know, kind of read all the books and see what it's about. I think it'll be a really nice escape from all of this coronavirus stuff. Yeah. So those are my thoughts about Elantris. I don't know if, you know, you have other thoughts. I want to do live streams for these kind of books because I feel like I can like classic. Hello, Pierre-Louis Blanchard. Are you French? I think it looks like you have a French name. It's very exciting. Bonjour, if you're French. I'm living in Geneva. So, it's very exciting. Oh, I like your little character too. I don't even know how you created this. You got this. Thank you. That's what it is. Oh, you're living in Switzerland. Great. Well, I'm currently stuck in Geneva. Stuck in Geneva. I mean, there are worse places to be stuck in. It's all good. I'm living with some great people, and there are beautiful mountains outside, so all is good. Only thing is, like, food is expensive, but yeah, it's fine. I've had a great experience, and I actually did visit France. I visited Toulouse for a few days, and I visited, of course, Paris for a few days. Visited the Louvre, visited Versailles, visited what else did I visit? Well, I wasn't obviously allowed to go to Notre Dame, but I was like, you know, taking pictures of Notre Dame. So yes, that's exciting. And where are you from? Like, where are you from? It is cool to see other Francophone people here. I follow Francophone booktube as well as Anglophone booktube. I try to like do both at the same time. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, like, I guess I'm getting a few more people here, which is so exciting. Thank you for coming to say hi. I just finished talking, if you're new, anybody's new here, I just finished talking about Elantris. You live in Luzerne. Okay. I have never visited Luzerne. But one of the Luzerne. Luzerne. Yeah, I don't no, I've never visited. I have not. Ooh, salut! Salut! Il y a plusieurs Français ici. Okay, how great. This is great. Fantastic. Are you where are you guys coming from? Like, this is so exciting. I feel like we have like the world here. This is a very exciting moment. Yeah, I mean, basically what I've so I just finished talking about Elantris, and I want to just like talk about like my channel and like things I want to do. So basically what's going on is I have a PhD exam, and I'm going to take my PhD exam in August. And I have to like know like 70 texts. So I've been reading them for the past like year. I still have quite a few left, including poetry collections. Now, I love poetry, but like the entire collection of poetry. So I mean, I got to figure out how to, where to begin there. And so, that gives me ideas for videos. But also, there's certain authors that are just so huge, like Racine or Corneille. I want to do some spotlight videos on them. So, the same kind of videos, the really, the big names in Francophone literature. Okay, that is very cool. So do you speak with a Québécois accent? I love the Québécois accent. I think it's great. Yeah, I really like it. But went to high school in Canada. Okay, very cool. That is super, super neat. Yeah, so I have these videos that I want to do that I, kind of around early modern period, also some medieval history. But yeah, I've been trying to find ways to no, it's not embarrassing. I love it. I think it's great to kind of break up the Parisian monopoly over like French language education. Like, I think it's great. I like it a lot. It's also cool for the students to, because I teach in the United States. I teach. It's passive French. Yeah. Yeah, that can also be hard too when you're not really surrounded by people who speak the language very much. And like I feel like, since I moved to Geneva, my French has improved so much because I'm living with people who are French speakers. I'm still taking classes at the University of Geneva, but just remotely. But yeah, it's hard. Like, it's hard. Like, I think speaking is always the hardest. Like, I have a very advanced. I mean, my spoken French is fine, but like my reading skills are obviously better. Like, I can read, French from like the 14th century, but yeah, speaking is always harder. And but I've considered making some videos in French. And I don't know, I don't want to alienate the Anglophone audience. But I don't know, like honestly, what do you guys want to see me do? Because I love just doing, trying new things and reading new works. I know I got a recommendation recently for Teresa Fabula, whose mystical works I've never read. So like, I'm totally up for it. I also like reading new things for the first time and just kind of talking about my impressions of it. Because there's like, there's the challenge of trying to like have any kind of community when your channel is all just education. And I get a lot of people who find my channel through, my videos, particularly on Plato's Symposium. I made a video on Plato's Symposium like a few years ago, and it's my most viewed video. And I get people all the time who are like, oh my gosh, thank you. I have this exam tomorrow and I didn't even read it. I'm like, okay, I don't think I'm saying anything that's like original or you can't find in Wikipedia. So I don't feel like, I'm teaching people how to cheat. But, when people only find your videos in that way, it's kind of like, I'm glad I'm able to be helpful because I do want to be educational. but at the same time, I want to also, be able to kind of foster community and to read things that other people would find interesting. And I thought to make this live stream because this is a book that maybe more people have read. But yeah, actually, I just want to open it up to people. If you have like particular suggestions of things I do, if you've never come across my channel before and you're like, who are you? I make videos. What kind of videos do I make? I make videos about Francophone literature. So like the big names, Balzac and Corneille and whatever. I make videos about really obscure medieval and early modern stuff, like books that I read. Most recently, I did a video on. No, you're not derailing questions. It's actually a good question when it gets to that in a moment. So yeah, I do all these obscure videos, but I also try to not just be educational, but to read text for the first time. So I read Orlando Furioso for the first time. I read Marco Polo's Travels for the first time, and I read Communal Luxury, I think, is a book that people recommended, which is about the Paris Commune. And so I like to do both, like read books for the first time and also like have more of an educational component. But as far as learning other languages, I am working on learning Latin because I work on the 16th century, which is the Renaissance, and I don't know Latin. Yeah, I don't know, in the US, Latin is not a language that most schools teach, and it never was anything that I wanted to learn. Like when I was in high school, like I didn't really have a reason to learn Latin, and now I do. Now I've taken 2 years of Latin classes plus like a summer course. And I just realized that a big problem that I have is vocabulary. I just need to shove into my brain tons of vocabulary so that I'm not looking up like every other word, because it really makes it hard for me. And I think the biggest weakness I have at the moment is, oh, hi Johnny, how are you? But yeah, the biggest challenge that I have is learning Latin. I need to spend more time on that because it is such an important language. As far as spoken languages, French and English, I'm just bilingual. I don't know what language I would want to learn to speak next. Honestly, German. I feel like German, well, Spanish. I mean, I'm living in the US. Spanish is probably the most useful language, and it's also a Romance language. But I would want to learn how to read German. I don't know. That's kind of where it is. Latin is where I'm at, and I just don't keep up with it as much. I will spend a few hours here and there on it, but I'm not keeping up with it, and it's a problem because it's something I really need. Yeah. Do you have other questions, anybody? Things you want to know? Today was such a nice day. I was like sitting outside, social distancing. I was sitting on the porch. Okay. And it felt like it was in the 80s, but actually it was only like 66 degrees, which I guess in Celsius, what is it in Celsius? I think it was like 16 Celsius. And it felt like it was like 25 Celsius. So it was a very nice day. And yeah, but it's easier for me, I must say. It is easier for me because I don't have children I have to care for. I'm not a caretaker. I am still getting paid, which, I mean, living in Switzerland and not being paid is really hard. Like, I don't know how people who are interning at the UN, like, that's like rough. Like, I think it's terrible that they have, well, anyway, that's a whole thing, free internships, but especially when they're in places like Geneva, Switzerland, or like New York City, like. But anyway, I'm still being paid, and bonne soirée. Yeah. Let's see. Do you guys have questions. Like, I'm still figuring this live streaming thing out. But this is so cool. Thank you for like coming to say hi. It's so heartwarming. I'm thinking about doing this next week at the same time, because I know this Sunday is a better day. Like, I think I tried to do a live stream like 2 weeks ago, and I did it on a Thursday, I think, and that was just such a bad idea. So Sunday, I think, is a better day. Yeah, I think, let's see. Well, it's been 40 minutes, which is great. I think this is wonderful. I think the next book that I am reading at the moment. So like, yeah, like let me talk about what I'm currently reading. So I'm reading Les Liaisons Dangereuses for that PhD list, and that one's so juicy. I mean, that's just a Dangerous Liaisons. It's a that is some real drama. Like, that's a good one. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Switzerland is trilingual, actually. So it has 3 national languages: French, Italian, and Swiss German. Which, for people who know High German, evidently is like a completely different language, and people understand nothing. And then there's Romanche, which is I think it's like less than 1% of the population can speak, and it's like this like a regional language, basically. It's like a completely different language. I was in Zurich, so yeah, and then somehow I was only there for like 3 days, and several people would ask me questions in German, and I couldn't help them. I was like, I'm sorry, I'm not from here. But I really wish I could have visited Basel. I think that, more than any country that I really wanted to know, it's the one I'm in, Switzerland. Like, I really wanted to visit the major cantons. And I visited Neuchâtel, Zurich, and then, of course, Geneva. But didn't get to visit Bern, didn't get to visit Basel, didn't get to visit Vaud, Valais. Like, I wanted to, but whatever. Like, it is what it is, what I liked about the Swiss German parts, though, is that many of the people knew English. So actually, if they had to choose between English and French, they just preferred English. I think English is taught. It seems to be like the preferred language because of its international use. Yeah, so Dangerous Liaisons I'm reading, and then I want to read Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which I got for my birthday, because my birthday was on March 22nd. I am now 28 years old. It's very exciting. Wow, I'm still in school. I made that decision. Let's see. And then, I'm also reading The Mayflower by Nathaniel Philbrick. So Nathaniel Philbrick, I'd read Away Offshore, which was about the whale ship Essex and like the whole tragedy of the Essex ship and how it influenced Moby Dick. And then I also read it was Away Offshore, and then I forget what they're called. There's 2 books. There's Away Offshore, and then there's The Whale Ship Essex or something. So I read those, but I really need to brush up on my American history. So I figured I'll start with Mayflower, and I've downloaded 5 books through my library, and now I'm binge reading them to get an introduction to. I did learn American history in school, but honestly, I snoozed through it, and now I regret it. Now I regret it. I'm maybe I should have paid attention. So that's what I'm doing, trying to be a better American citizen, and also to read the books I'm supposed to for school. Do you guys read anything exciting? recently? Anything that you would like say this is a great like COVID-19 relaxing book? Making learning a language inviting and respectful. Yes. Oh man, that's so nice. Crystal blue water from the lake. I know Switzerland's just absolutely gorgeous. Like it really is pretty. And I honestly have a lot of pictures, but I have only gotten that good idea. Yes, okay. Sorry, I'm like mixing two things up. Let me finish with the Switzerland first, then I'll talk about Northanger Abbey first. Okay. So I took a lot of pictures of Switzerland. And I also have some videos of the Escalade, which is it's like a historical event, 17th century Geneva. And I have some videos of that. So maybe I'll like do something with that online. I just got an Instagram and I'm not like an Insta traveler or anything. So I don't know. But Switzerland is very pretty. So I do want to share that. As to Lou Kasha's comment about Northanger Abbey, I've had such difficulties with Jane Austen. Like I've tried to read Pride and Prejudice a couple times. It did not work for me. And then I read Sense and Sensibility and I like wanted to chuck it into the Niagara Falls because I was reading it next to the Niagara Falls. But then I was taking a course and somebody was reading passages from Northanger Abbey. And I was like, this is meta. Like this is dealing with like storytelling conventions and genre conventions. And I was like, maybe Northanger Abbey will work for me. And I started reading it and I really liked it. So I am convinced that I think Northanger Abbey is going to be my book to get me interested in. Yes, Don Quixote-esque. Absolutely. It's meta, like it deals with storytelling in its form and in like the themes it deals with. That was my impression too. So I think that this is going to be the book that I like. And my understanding is that Northanger Abbey is like, oh yeah, okay. My time being a teenager. I really want to know. Like I do want to read this. I had a really rough I hated being a teenager. Which is the number one reason why I don't read YA, because I wouldn't willingly read about a time that actually isn't so great. Like I don't have great memories. So I think it's interesting that people have such wonderful memories of being a high schooler, whereas I'm like, I'm so glad I'm an adult. Like I'm so glad. Gosh, that was awful. But 19th century teenager, like I'm intrigued. I'm here for it. I hated Pride and Prejudice and couldn't finish Emma. Okay, all right. So I feel like I'm gonna really like Northanger Abbey because a lot of people who recommend like Jane Austen are usually like Jane Austen lovers. Like they really love Jane Austen, love everything she writes. And I find it a little bit harder to like relate. But if you've had challenges with her in the past, then I'm like, this is gonna be it. And I've actually had some good experiences from what I've read of Northanger Abbey, so I think this will be good. I will read it soon, along with all the million other books that I need to get to before I leave. But yeah, this sounds good. Any other relaxing, funny books? It could be deep philosophical too, like it's fine, I keep putting off reading Les Miserables. It's been my goal since high school to read Les Miserables entirely in French. I've never read in any language. Oh, okay. Okay. Three Musketeers, The Count of Monte Cristo. Okay, 1 second. Let me show you what I have actually. 1 second. I have this, which is Robin des Bois by Alexandre Dumas. It's like a collection of his Robin Hood novellas. And Dumas himself wrote so much. Like, I'm just blown away. And then, of course, his son wrote a lot. So that's what I have. But everyone, I read The Three Musketeers in English when I was in middle school. So I definitely need to revisit. I read in English, like it's been so many years. And then the Count of Monte Cristo. I don't think I have never encountered a person who has said that they disliked the Count of Monte Cristo. I've never, like, I feel like that's a book that's like universally loved. And that's just so appealing to me. But yeah, I just wanted to show you this because, like, who knew that Alexandre Dumas wrote about Robin Hood? I think of all the like pre-modern legends, Robin Hood, he's my man. And like, let's put it out there here. Robin Hood is not a thief. Like, okay, people say he steals from the rich and gives to the poor, but like, really, he's just giving to the poor what was already theirs. Like, the rich were stealing from the poor. He's just like, it's like justice. He's like giving them back what they deserve. He's like, no, he is not a thief. Oh, I also have Notre Dame de Paris, which I have to read. And I have pictures of Notre Dame de Paris as it is right now. But yes. Oh, it says €1 is given to the rebuilding of Notre Dame de Paris for each book bought. So look at me, like saving Notre Dame de Paris. So that's the one that I gotta read soon. And I think it would be really fun. Okay, so Disney does something completely different in the book, right? Like their adaptations aren't really adaptations of like a completely different story. But I think it would be fun to read the book and then watch the movie. And I think there's a sequel, right? And like just talk about that. I think it would be so interesting. Because yeah, how do you Disneyfy Notre Dame de Paris, like, or the Hunchback of Notre Dame? It's like it's how it's translated. Three Musketeers by Dumas, uber entertaining. Yep, I remember finding Lady de Winter, Madame d'Hiver, I think it's in French. I hated her so much. Oh god, I hate that character so much. I just remember being so irritated by this character. Man, I do have to read it in French though, because I want to see. Alexandre Dumas is a great reminder that you can write entertaining fiction and also like be a good writer, because I think he's a pretty good writer. Let's see. Anything else? So yeah, this was fantastic. I had a really good time, and yeah, plan on doing this again next week, same time. And I don't know if I'm going to, I'm thinking hopefully I get a book done that's like something people have read. I might do that because I want to come in with something. Like I'm still like new to this, but I love this. I get to talk to you guys. You can come with questions. Reading the book can be thought making one want to research. Yeah, okay, that's what I'm going to be doing then. I think that would be a good idea. And also Disney Plus, like I use my VPN and like, I am American. Like I just, pretend I'm in the US. I think it's now in Switzerland too. I think Disney Plus has finally arrived, but yeah, I will be watching. It'll be an excuse to rewatch it. My brother rewatched it recently and said it was great. And I'll read the book first. And then I also have his pamphlet, which Victor Hugo wrote to restore Notre Dame in his day. And I read that already, and I have a lot of thoughts about it. So we can make this into a Notre Dame cathedral, like bonding experience. And and we can share, pictures and you know, I don't know, like there's actually like illustrations in here, I think. Are there illustrations in here? There are illustrations in here. Look at these illustrations. This is weird. What is this? Weird. There aren't as many illustrations. Anyway, no, I guess they just have like some drawings that Victor Hugo made. Yep. So I think that I'm going to go. This has been a great live stream. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Justin, Lukash, Pierre-Louis, who I think has already left, Olivia, and Johnny. I think that's it. Miss anybody? No. Feel free to derail conversations. Like it's never that deep. It's all great. It's all great. I love hanging out with you all, and this was wonderful. Thank you, everyone. Bye.